Eldar first heard whispers of the hidden kingdom beneath the endless vaults of Mongolian skies on a late autumn evening when crackling fires illuminated old tapestries in his grandmother's girth. Outside, the wind curled around the structure, as if eavesdropping on the old woman's tale. She told him of the Sky Mother, a guardian deity believed to rule from beyond the clouds. Some said her gaze stirred the heavens into swirling storms. Others insisted she radiated the warmth that melted the snows each spring. Yet no one Eldar spoke to ever claimed to have seen the hidden kingdom with their own eyes. It was a place cloaked in secrecy, said to belong only to the thunderous spirits who served the Sky Mother's will. From boyhood, Eldar nursed a voracious curiosity about such legends. He studied scraps of old scrolls salvaged from his grandmother's trunk, consulted traveling shamans who occasionally wandered into their camp, and pressed every elder for clues about divine storms and elusive wonders. This fascination was what set him apart. While his friends wrestled in the dust or raced horses across the steppes, Eldar would sit cross-legged, eyes closed, straining to hear thunder's unspoken language. Sometimes, after the storms ceased, he thought he heard echoes, whispers perhaps, from that realm hidden in the welkin. Life on the steppe was governed by simplicity and tenacity. Each morning, Eldar rose before sunrise to tend the herds of goats and yaks that belonged to his family. He guided them to fresh pasture, listening to the quiet hush before the day properly began. The wind swirling through the grass would hold him, fleeting though it was, in a dream of distant thunder. It fed his longing to glimpse that otherworldly domain. Even the sweet scent of pine in the high altitudes reminded him of hidden secrets and the promise that one day he might venture beyond the horizon. When Eldar reached his 18th winter, his grandmother urged him to seek out a powerful shaman named Gansuk. Rumor had it that Gansuk possessed an arcane knowledge reaching back to the times when the Mongols believed everything breathed with spirit, from each pebble on the ground to each bird in the sky. He was said to know hidden pathways, the entry points to the domain of the Sky Mother, if indeed anyone still recalled them. One frosty morning, Eldar saddled his aging horse, a flea-bitten grey mare named Erdenez, and set off toward the hills. The sun had barely risen, painting the eastern sky a tender lavender. Frost glistened on the tufts of grass. It would be a day's ride, so he had packed dried mutton, goat cheese, and a small bottle of fermented mare's milk to sustain him along the way. With each hoofbeat, he felt his heart keep pace, pulsing with an anticipation he could hardly name. He found Gansuk's kur pitched by a half-frozen creek, a pair of ravens perched on the smoke hole, a sure sign of the shaman's presence. When Eldar dismounted, the birds croaked in unison and took flight. He ducked under the Jur's felt flap with caution, having heard stories of Gansuk's capricious moods. The interior was warm, thanks to a small fire in the hearth, and the walls were adorned with drums, eagle feathers, and small mirrors meant to ward off evil spirits. Gansuk sat cross-legged, eyes half-closed, humming a low chant. His face was weathered by age, but an indomitable spirit radiated from him, as though he was as old as the land itself. He gestured for Eldar to sit, never breaking his chant, and for a long moment they remained silent together in the Gur's stillness. Then Gansuk opened his dark eyes, which seemed to hold glimpses of a world beyond. "So," the shaman began, "you would peer into the realm of the thunder spirits? You must have deep courage or foolishness in your heart, boy." Eldar bowed his head. "Both, perhaps. I have dreamed of that place since I was very small. And you believe it is real?" Gansuk's eyes narrowed. "Many scoff at such stories. The world has grown large, they say, and we have discovered all that can be discovered." The young man's cheeks flushed. "But not everything. The elders still speak of the Sky Mother's hidden kingdom. My grandmother told me there was a sacred mountain rising beyond the steppe, one that no map accurately records, and that is the gateway to her domain." Gansuk dipped a ladle into a pot of tea and handed it to Eldar, who sipped gingerly at the bracing brew. The silence between them was weighty. At last the shaman nodded. There is indeed such a place, the crown of Tengri. Few who seek it return, fewer still speak of it. To attempt the journey is to face perils as old as the land itself. Aldar's palms began to sweat. Will you guide me? I cannot go with you, but I can give you what you need. Gansuk closed his eyes and began a slow chant. The Gur's interior grew stiflingly warm, even though the firewood had burned down to embers. Aldar felt gooseflesh rise on his skin. A subtle vibration in the air intensified and the wooden beams groaned as though some invisible force pressed upon them. Then, as abruptly as it began, the chanting stopped. Gansuk opened his eyes and plunged his hand into the folds of his tunic, withdrawing a small amulet carved from bone. It was etched with symbols Aldar couldn't decipher. Wear this around your neck, said the shaman. It is carved from the rib of a lightning-struck stag. It will protect you if your heart remains pure. Betray your quest with selfishness, and no talisman under heaven shall save you. Aldar thanked him, then asked what he must do to find the crown of Tengri. Gansuk explained that once Aldar left the inhabited lands, he must follow the northern star. This star at a specific hour of night would align with a peculiar cluster of rocky spires in the distance. Beneath those spires lay a secret valley. Legend claimed that an eternal storm circled there, stirring the presence of thunder spirits. If Aldar could endure that storm, he might find the hidden path leading upward. Do not stray, the shaman warned. Clouds will confuse you, illusions will tempt you, and thunder may deafen your senses. But every roar is a riddle. Listen, and keep listening. Early the next morning, Aldar thanked Gansuk and departed. The day gradually surrendered to twilight, and he pitched a small tent on the steppes' fringe. Over a modest fire, he roasted bits of meat and thought about the storm he would soon face. Outside, the grass whispered in the fading light. Erdens nickered softly, as if to offer reassurance. Aldar found little rest that night, drifting in and out of fitful dreams of swirling clouds and crackling thunder. He rose when the sky was still dark, scanning the heavens. Near the horizon burned the North Star, flickering like a distant, watchful eye. Aldar mounted Erdenes and followed its beacon to the rocky spires. By afternoon he could see them, tall, jagged silhouettes stabbing the horizon. As he drew closer, a strange wind began to blow. It smelled of sulfur, something pungent and electric. The sky darkened unexpectedly, and a suffocating hush enveloped the land. It happened in a breath's time. One moment the air was still. The next, thunder boomed overhead, and sheets of rain fell in a curtain so thick that Aldar could not even see Erdenes's ears in front of him. The lightning slashed at the ground, leaving scorched patches of earth, as if some celestial blacksmith hammered white-hot metal across the sky. Aldar drew the hood of his cloak tight, struggling not to panic as thunder rang in his ears. He thought of Gansuk's words. Every roar is a riddle. Pressing forward, he found a sense of purpose in recalling the old stories. The courage within propelled him through the relentless downpour. Perhaps an hour or more passed, though it felt like days. Rain seeped into every layer of his clothing, and the horse trembled beneath him. Still, Aldar willed himself onward, picking a careful path among the jagged stones, guided by sporadic flashes of lightning. When the rain finally eased, it ended as abruptly as it began, as though the elements had tested him, found him worthy enough, and relented. Cresting a small rise, Aldar beheld a bowl-shaped valley below. There, swirling languidly in the air, perched clouds as thick as fresh-curdled cheese, tinged with gleaming arcs of electricity. The valley's center appeared unnaturally bright, and Aldar could see a cylindrical stone formation that seemed to twist upward like a funnel. As thunder rumbled overhead, the funnel swirled with the same roiling energy. He tethered Erdens to a protruding rock. "Wait for me," he whispered, stroking the mare's damp mane. He feared taking her into the swirling heart of that phenomenon. Amulet clasped in hand, he began his descent. With each footstep along the slick stones and trembling grass, he felt a thrilling dread. Even breathing felt charged, as if invisible sparks danced across his skin. Reaching the valley floor did not dispel his apprehension. The funnel of stone rose before him like an ancient tower shaped by wind and time. At intervals, lightning flared across its surface, revealing etched pictographs. He dared approach, heart pounding. He ventured closer to the base, and a great crack of thunder nearly dropped him to his knees. But a voice unless it was, the wind softly hummed in the wake of that roar. He listened, trying to discern words beneath the endless rumble. His mind flickered with wonder. Perhaps these were the thunder spirits Gansuk spoke of, guardians of the hidden kingdom. They did not take human form, but manifested in the swirl of clouds and arcs of energy. Closing his eyes, Aldar released his breath in a long exhale. He recalled how his grandmother had taught him to feel the world's pulse, to sense even the faintest shift of the wind. He inhaled again, forging calm amid the tumult. The next time thunder roared, it carried something more than just noise, a pattern of tones and echoes, almost like speech. It was, he realized, a question. The roar shaped a meaning in his mind. "Who seeks passage? Who are you, mortal?" "I am Aldar, born of the steppe," he replied, not in spoken words but with a clarity of thought. "My grandmother's tales brought me here. I seek the hidden kingdom of the Sky Mother." Lightning crackled overhead. Then came another booming whisper that rattled in his chest. "Who granted you the right to enter? For we guard that which mortals must not disturb." He clutched the amulet. "I come, not for power or conquest, I come for knowledge. If the Sky Mother's wisdom can help my people, I must learn it." Silence, thick as night. When thunder broke it, he heard sorrow in the deep rumble. "Mortals often claim honorable intentions, yet they bring their own storms fueled by greed and arrogance." A pang of fear threatened to consume him, but Aldar steeled his resolve. "If you sense deception in my heart, strike me down now. My sincerity is yours to judge." He stood utterly still, eyes lowered. The hush that followed stretched so long he wondered if he should speak again. Then, in a sudden flash of light, the funnel parted, revealing an opening in the stone. Within it glimmered a spiraling path, leading upward through swirling mists that defied logic in their luminescent dance. Aldar stepped in gingerly, swallowing his trepidation. The interior walls seemed carved by an otherworldly hand, etched with swirling motifs reminiscent of the storms he had just faced. Faint glows flickered along these designs, leading him forward and upward. The path twisted nearly vertically at times, forcing him to grip the rock to keep from sliding back down. With each step, the air became crisper, and his limbs felt lighter, as if gravity itself lessened. The deeper he went, the more he lost any sense of time. It was as though he had left behind the ordinary laws of day and night. Then, at a final bend, a silvery light poured in, vibrant and pure. He emerged onto a plateau high above the valley floor. A gasp of awe escaped him. Before him stretched lush emerald grass, softly rolling hills, and scattered flowering bushes. The sky above wasn't the usual watery blue, but shimmered like polished turquoise. Tall columns of pale stone soared around the edges of this realm, and clouds drifted in elaborate patterns, sparkling as though they were woven with starlight. It looked like an idealization of the Mongolian steppe, perched among the heavens themselves. He soon spotted robed figures moving with the fluid grace of dancers. Their silhouettes were flickering, almost translucent, and the air around them glowed faintly. They regarded Aldar with cautious curiosity, but did not impede his approach. He thought he heard echoes of chanting. At the heart of this uncanny domain rose a gilded throne, carved from living rock, circled by swirling cumulonimbus clouds. There sat a regal presence, radiating powerful serenity. A tall, regal woman with eyes that reflected the entire sky. Storm clouds seemed to coil around her shoulders, forming a swirling mantle that hissed with static. Alda bowed low, his forehead nearly touching the grass. "No need for such reverence," she said, though her voice resonated like a distant peal of thunder. "You have met my guardians, and they have deemed your intentions honorable. Rise and speak." "You are the Sky Mother?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I've dreamt of your kingdom for so long." She studied him with a gaze both stern and benevolent. "You come to seek. But do you know what it is you hope to find?" Her words carried an ancient cadence that reverberated through him. He faltered. "Stories speak of your domain as a source of infinite wisdom and power. The world below is changing rapidly. We face famine, war, and storms so violent they tear our gers from the ground. I hoped you might guide us. Help us find harmony again." A gentle sigh escaped her. Thunder gently rippled across the sky, echoing her sadness. "Mortals once listened to the winds and the thunder. In days long past, my children and I walked among them, teaching them the language of the sky. But hearts closed as ambition brought divisions. They turned away from the old ways." "I know," Aldar said quietly. "Memories of arguments at marketplaces, petty feuds that escalated into violence, and the unstoppable wave of new beliefs overshadowing the old ways all weighed on him. We have lost much. Yet some of us yearn to remember." She leaned forward, resting her ethereal hands on the gilded throne. "And so, the Guardians tested you. They sought sincerity in your quest. Here, in my kingdom, is a living record of the old bond between mortals and the eternal sky. It is a legacy that exists not just in scrolls, but in the hearts of those who keep faith. If mortals again strive for humility and respect, the storms may become gentle rains, and lightning might illuminate rather than destroy." He felt tears sting his eyes. "Show me what to do. Tell me how to rekindle this bond." Thunder rumbled yet again. The robed figures drew closer, forming a circle around Aldar, their rhythmic footsteps pounding softly on the ground like the heartbeat of clouds. "Close your eyes," the Sky Mother instructed. He obeyed. In the darkness of his own mind, a vision coalesced. He saw the steppe roiling with storms. He saw terrified animals, scorched grasslands, and waterless. Then, flickering into being like candle flames, individuals began raising their voices in harmony, chanting prayers of respect to the elements. Dancers whirled, singing praises to the clouds, as they once had in ancient times. Gradually, the storm's violence softened into a replenishing rain, renewing the parched earth. The animals prospered. The people celebrated in unity under a vast healing sky. Then the vision receded, and Aldar opened his eyes. The robed figures lowered their arms, stepping back. "This is the future that can be," the Sky Mother said. "Teach others the hymns of old, the ceremonies once shared around sacred fires. Remind them of the reciprocal bond between earth and sky. Only thus can mortals reclaim what was theirs to begin with." Aldar nodded, awed by the grandness of the task ahead. I shall do whatever it takes." The air hummed with subtle thunder. "Return below with this knowledge. Spread the truth, and I shall guide you in spirit. The Guardians will not hinder your path. But remember, your success depends on mortal hearts. Even our realm here cannot force them to change." The seeds of harmony must be sown willingly. As Aldar stepped away from the throne, the robed figures drifted aside, leaving his route down the funnel unblocked. He looked one last time at the Sky Mother. Her gaze softened as she offered him a gentle nod of acknowledgement. Then the clouds around her brightened, and he felt compelled to move on. Retracing his path down the spiraling tunnel demanded caution, yet somehow it felt easier than before, as though an unseen current gently carried him. He emerged into the valley where he had left Erdinez. The storm that once raged so fiercely was now subdued. The air felt cleansed. The sky overhead retained an amethyst hue, but no immediate lightning menaced the clouds. He found Erdenez calmly grazing on fresh grass sprouting in the valley's lower slopes. The mare greeted him with a gentle whinny, almost as if relieved to see him. Mounting her, Aldar took a moment to rest. His mind swirled with excitement and a touch of fear. Knowing the difficulty of the mission before him, yet a new sense of purpose blazed within, kindled by the vision he had experienced in the Sky Mother's domain. Leaving the stone pillars behind, he trekked back across the steppe, forging a direct path toward the familiar lands of his home. It took several days. The storms he encountered along the way seemed gentler somehow, though perhaps it was simply his renewed awareness that made them feel less threatening. He would pause at times to breathe in the charged air, letting the thunder speak to him, reminding him of that vow he had made. When he arrived at the outskirts of his family's ger, he found his grandmother waiting by the doorway. It was as if she had sensed his approach from miles away. Though stooped by age, her eyes sparkled with recognition, and tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. Wordlessly, she embraced him. He inhaled the comforting scent of wood smoke and sheep's wool, the scent of home. That evening, while the moon drifted behind gauzy clouds, Aldar recounted his experiences. The old woman's hands trembled when he described the funnel, the roaring thunder spirits, and the resplendent figure of the Sky Mother herself. She praised the divine for granting Aldar safe passage. Then she pressed him, voice quivering with hope, to share the knowledge he had gathered. When he spoke of the vision of mortals returning to reverence for the natural world, she wept tears of joy. Together, they decided that Aldar must gather others who still held faith in the ancient ways. They visited neighboring camps, telling stories of how storms once served as nature's heralds rather than instruments of devastation. They taught children the old chants, encouraging them to see the clouds not as menaces, but as living symbols of the sky's authority. Many listened in fascination, yet a few shook their heads and dismissed Aldar's account as an old-fashioned fable, claiming that times had changed and modern ways had no need for old superstitions. But Aldar would not be discouraged. Each evening, as the sun set over the steppe, he'd light a fire at the center of camp and lead a small circle enchanting the ancient hymns. Gradually, the power in these communal gatherings could be felt. The hush of dusk intensified, and gentle breezes carried the soft echoes of their voices across the plains. Even the animals seemed calmer, and the nights became cooler and more refreshing. Word of this revival spread. More people began to travel to his family's camp, curious about these renewed ceremonies that promised to rekindle a sacred connection with nature. Some approached with skepticism, only to leave touched by the raw sincerity of the chanting and the sense of community it inspired. As the assemblies grew in number, storms came less frequently. When they did arrive, they brought a life-giving rainfall that nourished the steppe. Grass sprouted taller, and herds flourished on the bounty. The old believed they were witnessing a quiet miracle. The land, once battered by savage weather, was finding equilibrium. Though Aldar never forgot the might of the thunder spirits, he also recognized that this was just one step in renewing the ancient bond. The real challenge was leading people to rediscover humility, understanding that humans, for all their cunning, remained stewards rather than masters of the world. As the months passed, he found his voice growing steadier, his influence among the scattered tribes more certain. The amulet he carried from Gansuk remained close to his heart, a reminder that the thunder spirits were always listening. One evening, while Aldar sat by the fire with a group of new arrivals, a distant thunderclap caught everyone's attention. The sky was clear, the air calm. It would have been easy to dismiss that lone rumble as a stray echo in the mountains. Yet Aldar and his grandmother exchanged knowing glances. He stood, taking a few steps beyond the firelight. The hush that ensued pressed gently against his ears, like a secret offered in the night. He closed his eyes and listened. The thunder was faint, but carried a distinct timbre he recognized. It was an acknowledgement, a distant voice of encouragement, and perhaps gratitude. A small smile tugged at Eldar's lips. In that subtle rumble, he heard the spirit guardians reassuring him that his work had begun bearing fruit. It was neither the conclusion nor the final promise of triumph. It was simply a sign that the connection was reawakening. When he turned back to the circle, he saw candlelit wonder on the faces of those who sat waiting. They didn't understand the thunder's secret message, but they sensed something stirring beyond their comprehension. Something ancient, alive, and benevolent. Eldar, the one who had ventured beyond mortal horizons, would guide them further. The next generations, he reflected, would carry this wisdom forward if they remained steadfast in their love for the land. That was the hidden legacy the Thunder Spirits had guarded. Not just knowledge or power, but a reciprocal partnership, reminding humankind of its humble place under the grand dome of heaven. Eldar raised his arms, inviting them to join him in a final chant for the evening. Sparks rose from the fire, merging with the tapestry of stars overhead. As voices rose in unison, thunder echoed once more, not in fury, but in affirmation. And, faintly, from beyond mortal sight, the Sky Mother watched with her gentle, ageless eyes. Knowing the seeds of change had found their soil, and that a new dawn of harmony was already beginning its slow bloom across the land.